Eye contact. You made eye contact. What the fuck?
Thank you, everybody, for joining us at today's press conference. I'm attorney Gloria Allred. And with me is Sherry Bill.
On Monday, May 28, 2017, Governor Cuomo planned to visit to our neighborhood to survey damages and have a press conference. He leaned down over me and kissed my cheek. I was holding my small dog in my arms, and I thought he was going to pet my dog, but instead he wedged his face between the dog and mine and kissed me on the other cheek. I felt as though he was coming on to me in my own home.
Photograph of Governor Cuomo inside of Sherry's home, holding her hand. So this is the photo of the governor kissing Sherry outside.
And I went up to the front to, because he was talking to people, and I wanted to say I was the new chief of staff. And that was the first interaction where it was too long, and it was kind of mystifying how much time he spent with me. And that was my...
How much time did he spend with you?
Not much. He does this weird handshake where he grasps. He has these massive hands, and he grasps both sides, which sounds like nothing, but it's a power thing. It's like he has these massive hands, and he's wrapping his hands around both sides of your hands. Like, why does he need to envelop me with his hands?
It's gonna be ecstasy. This place was meant for me.
Another one was previously accused, credibly, of making false sexual harassment accusation in college.
The governor never sexually harassed Charlotte Bennett. But this is what Ms. Bennett said in her testimony about when she decided that the governor was sexually harassing her.
He went out of his way to comment on my hair, and this was in the fall of 2019. And this one hit me. This was very clear to me. And this was a moment in which I was like, that's sexual harassment. Meanwhile, I'm a mess because I'm working 2 jobs. I'm exhausted. I threw my hair into a bun in the morning. He just asked me, he just like commented on the fact that I had a bun. He was like, I don't know if he asked why I was wearing a bun or just said, your hair's in a bun, but he commented on my hair, and that was all I got from him. And he asked me why I put my hair in a bun today. And I was not prepared for that interaction. And I was like, wait, you don't like it? Kind of not looking for his approval, but like a what's wrong with my bun sort of attitude. Like, and I was like a little salty because I was just like actually very angry. And he's like, no. And then he starts like kind of leaving again. I was like, oh, you don't like my bun? And I'm like leaning over my cube, and then I stand up and I'm kind of addressing the other assistants at their cubes and being like, did you hear that? He doesn't like my bun. And I'm like kind of calling after him, and he walks away. And then I was like kind of in a crying rage and just left work.
With all due respect, what the fuck are you talking about?
What is still very dear to me is the activism that I engaged in at Hamilton College to change the environment on campus, which, at that point was toxic as well.
Now, it turns out that back in 2017, a federal lawsuit accused Bennett of filing a false sexual misconduct accusation against a classmate at Hamilton College. something a guest on this show, Michael Tracy, alluded to during an appearance. The lawsuit alleged that Bennett filed the claim, quote, knowing it was false and knowing there was evidence of its falsity. The suit claimed there was even a recording in which Bennett admitted the man she accused did not harass her. The school settled the lawsuit on undisclosed terms. And yet, this information was nowhere to be found in coverage of the Cuomo scandal.
One woman was caught lying, one of the accusers.
Yep.
She said dates that have happened that they proved could not have happened. Somebody was on a rope line, said something happened, that they proved was a lie. Again, I'm sticking just to the factual ones.
Yeah.
Something happened in an elevator, and there was a witness, did not corroborate. One of them said, he harassed me in the office for years, but there were no corroborators on that.
Well, what Ms. Commisso said the very first time she was asked about this is that it happened on November 19th of 2020. November 19 of 2020 is what she said. Ms. Commisso then gives a series of interviews to the Albany Times-Union. She tells the Albany Times-Union this happened on a weekday in late November. Then Ms. Commisso testifies under oath, made public by the AG. And in that interview, she testifies under oath that this occurred November 2020, but she couldn't recall the exact date. Then she said, but she assumed it was November 16th. And the reason is because two things happened on that day that struck her. One was she was asked to photograph the governor's driver's license. And that was the same day that she claims that the governor assaulted her by forcibly grabbing her breast. Okay. Well, the picture that was stamped in her iPhone was November 16th. And Ms. Commisso said, and that happened the same day that the governor groped me. And that's why the Attorney General's report said November 16th, because it was Ms. Commisso that said both these events happened that same day. And I have the photo, and this is the date. So the report says this happens on November 16th. And then, after we do a presentation to explain that no way, shape, or form could this have happened on the 16th, because what Brittany Commisso had told the Albany Times-Union happened is that she was only at the mansion for a short time. It was to assist on something with the governor's iPhone. And what we were able to see from the emails on November 16th, which I might add, the Attorney General's investigators didn't get. Again, this goes to the process, the integrity of that investigation, and the reliability of the investigation in that report. They didn't get the emails that Ms. Commisso sent that day on November 16th, and it showed that she was there with a number of other staffers. She was there to work on a speech. She was there for a number of hours, and then she left. Bore no resemblance to the story she told the Albany Times-Union. After we came out and publicly said that, there's another article in the Times-Union, and now it's that she thought the incident occurred on a workday later that month, possibly around November 25th. It couldn't have happened on the 25th because we have the pins of when she was in the mansion. And the only day she was in the mansion in November was November 16th. This wasn't just a mix-up of dates. This is Brittany Commisso giving substantive testimony about how she knew it had to have been around November 16th, and it was because she said she took the picture of the governor's driver's license that day. And that couldn't have happened. But investigators, they don't confront her with this. So then what happens is, after we've done presentations about this, Ms. Commisso's attorney goes back to the Times-Union in October and now says, well, she couldn't recall if it was November or December. This is the first time we hear it could have been in December. We file our submission to the AG's office to amend, correct, and supplement the report. They got November 16th wrong, and to this day, they won't admit it. They won't admit the inconsistencies between her accounts. After we do our application to amend the report and we lay out in detail all the different versions that Ms. Commisso had told different people about what happened with this incident, okay? The initial version she told to two other executive assistants was that the governor had thrown her against the wall, grabbed her breast, and then kissed her. Well, then 2 days later, Ms. Commisso backed away from that version. And what we now have is Sheriff Apple files his complaint, and he has a new date. He says it's December 7th, 2020, but Sheriff Apple didn't do his homework. So we know the Attorney General's investigators didn't do their homework.
I remember going up to his office. I remember having my coat on. It was November. It was cold. I wasn't expecting to stay there long. I think he said, why don't you, take your coat off or something? And I said, well, I'm okay. Like, I'm going to go back to the office. I think I asked him, are you all set? Like, do you need anything else? And he said, no, that's it. And I said, okay, I'm going to go back to the office. So I remember him getting up and going around his desk. I remember him, coming around, and he was instantly, pulled me in, and I remember his hand just sliding right up my blouse. That's a large hand, and over my bra. This just went from 0 to 60 in 0.2 seconds. It was so fast.
So you said you went in, you had your coat on. What did your coat look like?
It was a black coat. It was a black, long winter coat.
And when you went in, were you zipped and belted up?
I believe that I think what I had done was I had taken it off when I sat down.
So at what point did you put it back on?
I believe when I stood up to leave. When I went to leave and stood back up, I just had put my coat back on, but I don't believe I zippered it.
And you pulled it back up before he came around and groped you, is that right?
Yes, I definitely had my coat on me.
Lindsey Boylan is not credible.
At the time, I knew that there were a number of complaints against Lindsey from staff people, higher up staff people and subordinate staff people. And this was a constant theme. They were not about me. I knew she had issues with the staff. They had progressed to the level where there were formal complaints that went to the general counsel. And the general counsel interviewed her on these complaints. And they were much more serious than anything I had thought about. She walks out in the meeting, or she gets offended at the meeting. She left the meeting upset, resigned, and then called back and said, I want my job back. The council wouldn't agree to give her her job back. She was then calling me to intervene with the council.
The report credits Ms. Boylan's claim that on a plane in 2017, the governor asked Ms. Boylan to play strip poker.
Now remember now, no jewelry, no bobby pins, none of that kind of stuff. And both socks count as one. It's gotta be an authentic article of clothing, all right? Well, come on, let's go. Sign up, you gonna play or what? Let's go.
Okay? And they credit it on the ground that Howard Zemsky, the former head of the Empire State Development Corp, had testified that he recalled the governor making such a statement. Yet the report at the same time says that Mr. Zemsky initially didn't have the slightest memory that the governor made any such comment.
To remind you of something.
But after Miss Boylan first made this claim, okay, it was in a February 24th, 2021 Medium essay. That same day, Mr. Zemsky signed on to a public statement with 3 other chamber staffers who were on that flight, okay, with Lindsey Boylan. They're on flights with the Lindsey Boylan. And what they said publicly and released publicly is that, quote, this conversation did not happen. Okay, that is what Howard Zemsky said February 24th, 2021. But here's what the report didn't tell you. Later that same day, on February 24th, Boylan sent a threatening message to Howard Zemsky, okay? What the report put in is they said at some point after the Medium essay, Zemsky received a threatening message, a jarring message, but they didn't tell you it was the same day, okay? And they never told you what that message was. And there was no excuse for that. We now know what Ms. Boylan sent to Mr. Zemsky on a application. It's a phone application, and it's called Confide, screenshot proof. Using that application, Ms. Boylan said to Howard Zemsky that same day, because he was disputing her, quote, I can't wait to destroy your life, comma, your shit follower. And I presume Ms. Boylan is referring to herself and knowing something about Mr. Zemsky. The Attorney General's investigators never asked Lindsey Boylan about that text. They never asked her about that text. They interviewed Howard Zemsky in July of 2021. They didn't circle back and say to Ms. Boylan, why did you have a Confide application? Why did you send him a text that was encrypted, self-destructing, and that he couldn't take a screenshot of? When you said, I can't wait to destroy your life, Ms. Boylan, what did you mean? What did you have on Howard Zemsky that you could destroy his life? Attorney General's report says none of that, and they never confronted Ms. Boylan. And then after Mr. Zemsky got that text, he changed his story. After she threatened him to destroy his life, he changed his story. The AG had evidence that Ms. Boylan was tampering with the witness, trying to get him to corroborate her, and threatened to destroy his life if he didn't. And they never asked her about it, and they didn't tell you about it, and they didn't put it in the report. And that tells you what this report was all about. We have repeatedly asked, what was in the text? What could it be that Ms. Boylan was referring to? Well, Mr. Zemsky, what he told investigators when he was interviewed, and he was interviewed first informally in July, what he said, there was an occasion, late 2017, and that he and Ms. Boylan were, quote, more than professional. And this is when he was head of the Empire State Development Corp., and Lindsey Boylan was his chief of staff, reporting directly to him.
She shared the picture and you wrote, where is my pic? I'm officially jealous. Why were you officially jealous? How did you know that he had asked that she send you this picture?
Alyssa McGrath is Brittany Commisso's best friend since the 9th grade, okay? Socialize regularly. What Ms. McGrath testified, and she also gave her own interview to the New York Times in March of 2021, talking about how the governor treated her and her discomfort. And she testified that she felt, quote, embarrassed, uncomfortable, and stressed when she claims that she thought the governor looked down her shirt, okay? Well, Ms. McGrath's ex-husband was interviewed by the Attorney General. And we now have that transcript because the Attorney General had to give it to us. They asked him if there was a lot of borderline adoration of the Governor Cuomo by her. Miss McGrath often talked about how handsome she thought he was and referred to him as the love gov. Mr. McGrath said she never said to him anything that coincided with what I've read. She never once was it ever said, I feel very uncomfortable with him, Governor Cuomo. Mr. McGrath found Miss McGrath's allegations, quote, contradictory. That not only did she never communicate to me that she was uncomfortable or being harassed, she communicated both attraction and, complete loyalty to the governor. He also testified that she kept accolades, including a photo of herself, Miss Commisso, and the governor on a pin board next to her bed. He also testified that right before the New York Times article came out in March of 2021 by the New York Times, where for the first time Alyssa McGrath now has a different version of her interactions with the governor, she called them and she said, there's going to be something in the paper, and I just need you to kind of have my back on this. And what Mr. McGrath understood her to be saying is, hey, I'm going to say some stuff. You might know it's BS, but can you keep your mouth shut? That's what he took from the conversation. They never asked Miss McGrath about this. Why not?
As I also write in the book, I think that we're in a very dangerous place right now, because when all of a sudden you're combining kissing someone on the cheek or putting your hand on someone's waist for a photograph and acting like that is harassment, or that in some way is something that you should be calling for resignation on, then you risk not having more serious claims taken seriously.
This video has been demonetized by YouTube, so I will receive no ad revenue. And so if you enjoyed this, if you got something out of it, if you are one of the Cuomo supporters who has been begging me to do this video, I would appreciate a tip or donation. My PayPal and Patreon links are below. And to everyone, have a happy holiday.